It's now 8:42 here on Kiwi. Time to get Russell Brown on from publicaddress.net, the hard news blog there, also Media 7 show, TVNZ 7. Morning, Russell.
Good morning.
And first up today, a news story that's being reported about a study done that suggests that we shouldn't be putting our kids into daycare.
Yeah. The moment I saw a particular name in these stories, Dr. Eric Sigman, I thought, oh dear. Although it's hardly the first time that Family First has quoted a fairly dubious source. Eric Sigman is the guy who suggested that letting your children play video games might give them cancer.
Oh, right, that guy.
He's absolutely notorious. Basically for fitting the evidence to his conclusions.
So how does this end up getting reported in our newspapers here?
Because Family First sent out the press release, basically.
Oh, right.
And they don't think anyone should put their children in daycare.
So they sent out a press release and the newsroom printed it.
That's how these guys get news. It's the same with the Sensible Sentencing Trust.
Yeah.
They're always available on the phone to be called, and they send out a steady supply of press releases of varying merit, and this one really isn't of great merit, basically. It's in a report called Who Cares? Again, this is Family First fitting the evidence to, manipulating the evidence to fit its conclusions or selecting it, basically.
Gosh, tell you what, mums are really in the gun this week in the media, aren't they?
Yeah. It is kind of sad if mothers are, as has been claimed in the paper this morning, being harassed for bottle feeding. Anyone who'd do that's a complete idiot. You don't know what's in the bottle anyway.
No, indeed.
It could be expressed milk.
That's right.
It has all gotten a little bit over the top. Although it does appear that the La Leche League didn't quite come out as strongly against Periwepu as the stories indicated.
So a lot of this has been ramped up by the media.
Yeah, it has. I think the whole thing's a beat up, frankly.
Yeah. Okay.
But yeah, I hope everyone calms down and stops being so judgy. Frankly, you don't know what anyone else's circumstances are. You don't know what's in the bottle. Some women cannot breastfeed.
Well, indeed, and I guess
I think that's hard enough without having strangers in the street, calling them names.
Well, yeah, exactly. But this moves us quite nicely to the topic of conversation on Media 7 this week. How are we going to make sense of all these issues if we don't have decent public broadcasters in New Zealand?
Indeed, yes. The public broadcasting thing's come around, and it's going to get acute this year because as things stand, TVNZ 7 will still go out of existence at the end of June. And, of course, we've already lost Stratos. I thought David Beatson wrote a really good summary of the issues around Stratos on Pundit late last year when it happened.
Can you summarise why Stratos is no longer on air?
Basically, the big thing was actually an unexpected change of policy on the way the regional broadcasters transition to digital would be managed and funded. And the idea was that the biggest chunk of money would actually go to Stratos, which has had a kind of symbiotic relationship with the other regional broadcasters for quite some time. And it would get some of their programs on so that people could see them on digital without all the broadcasters having to embrace the considerable cost of actually transitioning to digital. Because it's not just that they can switch over and that's it. They have to be on Freeview Terrestrial, Freeview Satellite, and probably on Sky.
Yeah.
And that's enormously expensive. And the way the government are doing it now, which is to invite them all to apply for a completely inadequate $70,000 each, just isn't going to work. So hardly anyone's applied for it. And I think that Stratos had actually counted on being able to play that role and the $600,000 that came with it. And then all of a sudden at cabinet level last year, it was changed for no apparent reason. So,
but was it more that Stratos couldn't find a way through it, or it's a bit of protest at the whole system?
No, they couldn't. No, basically, they couldn't make the business work because
right.
it was self-funded, commercially funded, and the income just wasn't enough to support what they were trying to do.
Okay.
It is probably important to note that it did prove commercially unsustainable, but the death blow was this sudden about-face-on policy to a transition scheme that hardly anyone has picked up. So it's not just going to be Stratos, it's going to be all the other regional broadcasters who are going to be left out in the cold when, as digital switchover starts to kick in later this year. So it's a terrible policy. It just doesn't work.
And of course, meanwhile, as you say, TVNZ7 going off here in June.
Yes.
And there's no rescue coming along for that. We're on that time frame, and that's what's going to happen.
I could not tell you whether there's a rescue or anything else. There's a whole bunch of things could happen, basically. John Drennan speculated in the Herald last week that Sky was looking at putting up a public service channel, which would be a little bit ironic if it was behind Sky's paywall. On the other hand, maybe they're looking at something like that as something for Igloo. I have no idea.
There's some potential there, isn't there?
Yeah, that could happen. The other one is...
But it's not public broadcasting if you have to pay for it.
No, exactly. Yeah, so it would have to be free to be public broadcasting.
Yeah.
The other option that's been discussed is Brent Impey's idea of Māori Television setting up a new mainstream public service channel, and on the basis that they have a good track record now doing this kind of thing.
Yeah.
So who knows? But the interesting thing for me has actually been trying to unravel these statistics quoted in a couple of Herald editorials, both, it would seem, by the same author, one last month and one last April, which offered a measure of TVNZ7's audience that no one else has ever seen. And TVNZ have apparently said privately to the Herald, we don't know where this came from.
Right, okay.
Oddly enough, I've discovered where it came from.
Yeah.
And it was Jonathan Coleman, the then Minister of Broadcasting.
Huh.
But it's still a puzzle because, like Stratos and like Māori Television, TVNZ7 collected its audience figures, its main audience figures, as a monthly cum, which is the total number of people who tuned in to TVNZ7 for at least 8 minutes in a month. How we came to be looking at the much smaller weekly cum, I'm not sure. For the record, TVNZ7's audience actually grew quite well last year. It averaged 1.1 million viewers a month and peaked in December with 1.4 million.
Wow, there you go.
Which isn't bad. It's bigger than the Herald's audience.
Is this still measured from the set-top boxes, or are these phone surveys?
These come from the people meters.
Yeah.
And so there's a certain caveat about that, and you'd be on perilous ground pressing the comparison between the Herald's audience and TVNZ7's audience too far, because that's taken in a completely different survey called the Household Readership Survey.
Yeah.
But I think the point is that that the Herald editorial was on shaky ground, mocking TVNZ7 as an unwatched irrelevance, because basically it appears TVNZ7's audience and the Herald's readership, online and offline combined, are in the same zone.
Okay.
Yeah, so it was an odd, and particularly the one in January was really poorly informed. Someone whoever's writing these editorials obviously has a bit of a chip on their shoulder about TVNZ7 and probably TVNZ in general. But you would hope that they would, actually get the factual side of it right, and they don't seem to have yet.
Indeed. And of course, a lot of discussion last year about the possible scenarios, though we haven't heard any more about Radio New Zealand with pictures.
No, I think that one's gone. I think of the half dozen options for either the channel or our show that are floating around, I think the one that we're not going to see is the radio with pictures, which is a bit of a bummer. But I don't know. I mean, I would not. What I tell everyone at the moment is that I think it's probably 50-50, and the 50% that is staying on air is composed of 5 or 6 different possibilities.
Yeah. All right, look forward to the discussion.
Well, it should be good, actually.
Yes.
And we've got Rachel Cunliffe from Throng on, and she's a statistician, so that'll be good.
Yes, so that'll be screening Thursday evening just after the 9 o'clock news on TVNZ7.
Indeed.
Cheers. Thanks,
Cheers,
Russell.
mate. Bye.
See ya. Publicaddress.net as well for the hard news blog. Time now here on Kiwi.